This is Rocky against Apollo Creed, and I got a feeling that Rocky could win this in the first try.
Welcome to the German Fußball podcast, and for this special episode, as we preview the title showdown in the Bundesliga, it is the undefeated Bayer Leverkusen against the mighty Bayern Munich, 11-time consecutive champion, in the title showdown this Saturday. And Dad, are you as excited as you could tell I was in the intro there?
Yeah, but I see you you're wearing the red shirts, but no Leverkusen, there's no Bayern shirts. I guess you are more excited about Sunday and the Super Bowl, and there is no coincidence that while your fiancée Anna is from Kansas, that is a Kansas Chief shirt, isn't it?
Go Chiefs! Yeah, it is on Sunday. So I've been looking forward to this weekend for a bit, that because we've obviously had an eye towards the Bundesliga game, the title showdown as it is. And then obviously the Chiefs made it to the Super Bowl as well. So I had to kind of integrate the both of them and show that despite me not having a Bayern Munich shirt or a Leverkusen shirt, I think that would kind of interfere with the objectivity maybe of this podcast, because the only shirt we can wear from the Bundesliga is Eintracht. So I chose the diplomatic choice of having the Chiefs. And here we are for a preview.
And 21, which were your number when you played. Great to remind us, there is another football game coming up in the USA, but in Germany. There is also a great game. And I guess, Markus, you say objectivity. Yes, we are both Eintracht Frankfurt fan. But I think that the whole world, except Bayern, they would like Leverkusen to win this game. And I'm not saying that because I'm not impressed by Bayern. But we will talk more about that. Bayern, by all standards, have a great season. And we'll talk about that. It's not enough being Bayern. But you win the league 11 times in a row. And we know you live in England. I'm a lot in England. And you get this brand Farmers League. And the weakest point the Germans have, or we have when we defend the Bundesliga, is, of course, that Bayern keep winning. That's not Bayern's fault, of course, because the other teams got to be better. Having said that, last season, we remember, a recap, Dortmund had to win against Mainz at home, but they decided not to and threw more or less the trophy to Bayern, who did exactly what they had to do. Remember that Musiala goal to win them the trophy again. But Markus, it's Leverkusen at home. They are undefeated against Bayern. And what everybody feared that loved German football, and I follow this league very, very closely, that is, of course, Kimmich. Have not played for a long time, and he never scored so many goals. He would probably scored on a deflection from 25 yards, and it would be 1-0 Bayern. And now we are all excited about this game, Markus.
But let's review this title showdown, and I want to ask, what makes this different than the previous ones we've had? Because up in the last years that we had the Dortmund as the perennial challenger to Bayern Munich. This year is Bayer Leverkusen. Now, we've tended to be disappointed because of the Kimmich chip or a Goretzka, whatever, that has tended to get Bayern over the line and kind of remind us that as much as we build up this title showdown, Bayern are champion. That's how it tends to go in these title showdowns, which has tended to be Dortmund against Bayern. Now they're up against Leverkusen. What makes this time different?
Because last season, you remember, that was an up and down season. There was time that we thought Bayern would run away with it. Then Dortmund suddenly came back. Then Bayern were gone. And at the end of the season, it was like a lottery, and it really was who will gonna win the title. This year is different because the title battle is a consequence of Bayer Leverkusen being very constant. It's a consequence of Bayern having a philosophy. It's a consequence of Bayer Leverkusen being very loyal to the way Alonso wants them to play. No losses, impressive. It's also got a will in them to win football games. They had a preview this week playing Stuttgart. By all means, a great team this season in Germany in the Cup. And they ended up in the last minute, more or less, winning that game against them. So for hope that someone should take Bayern down from the throne, I mean, it's more optimistic this season because last year, still, that Dortmund were all the way in, but still they were now kind of feeling that there was a constant. It was Terzic, one game was that, another game was this. But we have to say, and I said that the Bayern got a great season. They had a kind of a 12 games run, then they lost 5-1 to our Eintracht Frankfurt. Then they have a great run again, and out of nothing, they lost against Werder Bremen. And so I'm not saying this is a match ball, Markus, but I mean, Leverkusen have earned themselves this position that they're in before the big title battle fight on Saturday.
And just to put into context, in terms of how well the two teams have performed, we mentioned that Leverkusen are undefeated, had a fantastic season. Bayern as well. Now, there's been criticism in terms of how convincing these wins are, but having said that, these two teams have collected 102 points after 20 match days. That is a record in the competition after 20 games. To put into context what makes this top two matchup so special, before I ask you about Alonso and his impact on the team, and maybe the vibe surrounding Tuchel and Bayern, why is it unique that Leverkusen are in this position? Because for those who are maybe less familiar, or perhaps those that need a refresher, Leverkusen have been known as Neverkusen and etc. etc. Can you, I guess we can take it from the past and into the present in terms of what Alonso has done to this team, what the contrasts are between what was and what is now.
The key word is culture. At Bayern Munich, they have a winning culture. They've had that since the beginning of the 70s with Beckenbauer, Müller, and Uli Hoeneß, and the rest of them. They have made it possible to have a winning culture that is installed in the club. Leverkusen is the other way. Remember, for those who don't know Bayer Leverkusen, Bayer is something you see all the time when you have some illness or there is some cream you need. That is a Bayern. It's called the Werkself, meaning that it's really the company, the football company team of Bayer, the große Bayern concern, the big concern of Bayer. They have been able to, they have some great people in and around the club, like Rainer Kallmund, who was a legendary sports director. They had Rudi Völler, and they've had great players over the years that we will touch on at the end, Markus, but they'd never be able to put this winning into winning trophies. They won then and again some cups and here and there, but still the big time is in 2001, I guess. No, yeah, 2001. 2001, they had a great team. The father of Dino Topmüller, who is now the coach at Eintracht Frankfurt, they had a chance to win every title. They lost the cup. They lost against Unterhaching in the last game of the season, a small team just outside Bayern, of course. And then they lost the final. Fair enough. They lost against that Zinedine Zidane volley. I mean, everybody know about that. So that was the kind of Neverkusen, Vizekusen, meaning you're not a vice president, the president. So this is the president against the vice president because they can never win. And they've had great players over the years, but they never had that culture. What has changed a bit now, Markus, is that they have done something about that culture. So the recruiting of Alonso, the recruiting of players is a consequence of them being very specific on the culture. And I have to give a praise to the new kind of head of sport there, Simon Rolfes. He played there, was a loyal man there for many years, a great lad. I met him many times in different media roles. Great lad, and he's not to be underestimated, the way he has got a culture, a winning culture into the club. But as we know, the main thing is to win a title, and they still got a couple of 3 chances this season.
And obviously a key part of bringing that. And we're wary of saying a winning culture yet, because Leverkusen haven't won anything yet. But even still, the way they are carrying themselves, the manner in which they've also very convincingly started the first half of the season, but the second half of the season, in which it hadn't come as easy as it did the first half of the season, in which they won late. They won against Augsburg. They won against Leipzig late, which converted 2 points into 6. They win now in the 90th minute through a Jonathan Tah header to get to the semi-final of the German Cup. So there is that special feeling, and it seems that the longer this unbeaten run tends to carry on, the more of Xabi Alonso's winning disposition rubs on the team, and that must only reinforce the feel Leverkusen have around the team, doesn't it?
Yes, and I was at Allianz Arena when our friend Archie was at that big fat Greek wedding, and I had to step in for him doing the interviews for ESPN. And that was a fantastic football game. That was at least a very entertaining football game. Leverkusen again equalized at the
very,
end.
Very end, yeah.
Yeah, was Grimaldo.
Grimaldo with the first, and then Palacios with the penalty in the 94th.
Yeah, exactly. And that was a very, very entertaining game. And Leverkusen have managed that, but it's still, you have to win titles. Alonso knows that. He's one of those coaches that knows that best in a present football. And when you just see the coaches he's been able to learn from at Bayern, at Real Madrid, at Liverpool Football Club, then you know you've gone the best school ever. And if you ask me about Alonso, I knew him as a player. I interviewed him as a player when he was at Bayern, and now I've been able to interview him three times as the Bayer Leverkusen coach. And he's one of those. His charisma, his way of treating or act, he just is so credible, Markus. And I think that you want to identify with that, and you can see that Leverkusen is a mirror of their trainer. Different by Bayern, of course, if I may just take the bridge to them, because Bayern, as you're saying, they had a great season. They're only 2 points behind a team that has never lost this season, but still Bayern is much more. Leverkusen can win 1-0 and they play bad. Bayern not allowed to do that. And Bayern also have all these politics around, and they're all the journalists, the media, inside the club talking to the media. A lot of people have an opinion of the club. So this is a more, I know, Unruhe. It's not so calm at Bayern. But having said that, that is also, don't underestimate that as a driving force too, because that's when Bayern is also dangerous, because there's always been Unruhe, not calm at Bayern, and they always seems to be at the most dangerous. If you remember the jungle stories we read about, a hurt lion, they are a hurt lion sometimes, and then they manage to just jump back. And over the last 11 years, Markus, the challenges were often Dortmund. And how many times have we sat here expecting a Dortmund Bayern, and we think this is the chance for Dortmund, and after 5 minutes the game was over. Dortmund didn't manage to do that since Klopp was there. So it just shows you that the consistency there is in terms of winning things, know when to be at your best. That is, I mean, there is not many clubs in the whole world who have that culture inside their club.
And just to conclude on Leverkusen, that Alonso, before we go into specifics with Bayern and also then into key matchups, the interesting point with Alonso as well, in terms of where he took Leverkusen from, as we know, from pretty much the bottom of the league last season, it seemed to be a good fit for him in the sense that it could only go up with Leverkusen. But then in terms of the expectations, he's very much exceeded with this season, is of huge credit to him as a manager, right? Because you've spoken about his fantastic playing career and that kind of gentleman-ish aura he had that he's carried on into the field, which undoubtedly will help with the legitimacy when you go into a changing room. But then it's also combining that, pairing that up with strong tactical fundamentals, good technical fundamentals. And you've interviewed him, a few times, and I was fortunate enough to go to Leverkusen and interview Xhaka and ask him about it, but also watch the training. And what was very interesting then with him is, I think he represents a new generation of coaches and we talked about that in the Klopp episode as well, is that it requires a certain energy from you as a manager. And you could see there, Xabi Alonso as a manager, he's there on the field, he's showing by example, he's showing how it's been done. And you talk about the influences of managers as well. He's played under Guardiola, he played under Ancelotti, Mourinho, Benitez, etc. If I compare and say the influences, I say you look at Leverkusen going into this game, more rigid positionally, a bit more like Guardiola. They have their positions, they have a 3-4-2-1. They have that kind of structure to them, especially in the midfield, how they combine. But that we know in terms of winning, you need that pragmatism. And maybe it's too simple of a connection to make, but a Mourinho's kind of pragmatism and defensive solidity. It's the team that's conceded the least as well. Let's not forget that. For all the entertaining football they played, they conceded the least as well. And that's what I think is exciting with Alonso, and certainly an effect he's had on this team that I think will make it different than when they played at Dortmund.
I think that mixture is important on the field, but it's also never underestimate the ability he has to lead this team, the leadership of Alonso. And the whole world will watch this game. This is one of the greatest game around this weekend. I mean, yes, the Super Bowl will be there as well, but the whole football world, the soccer world, we may not say that, but we'll look at Leverkusen. And my generation, we said, who are you going to call? You called Ghostbusters. That was my generation. That is turning into a dad joke, no, but still, who do you want to call when you are playing the reigning champion? Who are you going to call when they have won 11 times in a row? Who are you going to call when you play against the team with the maybe best winning culture in the whole world? Yeah, it's a guy like Alonso, because Alonso can say with a steady credibility before the game, I've been there before. Everywhere, I've been there before. What I have learned from these games is that calm down, do your stuff, do the things we worked on in training, do what we have agreed to do on set pieces, the way we pressurize the ball. We want to control the ball, we want to control the game, we want to control Bayern. So just calm down and do what we have done, and the rest is a consequence. And when Alonso's saying that, Markus, you believe him, because he's been there. And I think that is the main thing that he has gotten into this Bayer Leverkusen team.
And let's focus on or shift into Bayern then. In terms of you mentioned there, in terms of it's not enough winning, you have to win convincingly. Now we know Bayern are out of the cup. They are 2 points behind the league, but then they also are in the Champions League. Now, questions remain. Are they strong enough to win that? But even still, they got the Bundesliga here, the one that they're so used to winning. In terms of Bayern seasons that we look going into this game, and there will be some key players to rely on, but there will also be a lack of players that they can rely on because there are injury concerns, etc. But just to give the listener kind of a quick overview in terms of where Bayern have been this season and what players, I guess, that have stood out for them.
Well, in present, we are recording this on a Thursday. What we're told is Manuel Neuer was just running today. He's planning to train tomorrow, Friday, and then be ready for the game on Saturday. Kimmich is desperate to come back. He has a good chance to coming back. We'll see with Upamecano. I read somewhere that he can go in there. We know that Davies is already out. They will miss him, so they have to find a solution on the left back. So they have to kind of switch around there. Bayern has had a good season in terms of results. Harry Kane has saved them 24 goals in 20 Bundesliga games. He is about to beat the unbeatable record of Lewandowski, who beat the unbeatable record of Müller. We said that before. It's just like unbelievable. But he's one of the 1-0 scorers. And that is one of the main skills you can have as a striker, is to get that 1-0, because that will relieve them. So you can say, I guess last year Musiala was the top scorer at the club with 10 goals.
Top, I think. Second, I think.
Yeah, second. Yeah, and Choupo-Moting was there. So they had to rely on them. This season you have Harry Kane. That has kind of saved them in many games, but don't underestimate Bayern. They are still doing their stuff. Yes, they're out of the cup. They are still in the Champions League. They have an ambition to win the Champions League. They could win the Champions League. They're playing Lazio now in the next round. They will probably go to the next round there, and then we'll take it from there. And Tuchel, yes, but every coach at Bayern will be under fire all the time. And Tuchel, he is wearing his sleeve, the heart outside his shirt. He got a temper. He got a passion. You know, I'm a big fan of Thomas Tuchel. I've always have been, and I would love to see him succeed. That doesn't mean that I would like to see another champion in German football. I think we all neutrals want to do that. So Bayern is well equipped for this game. And the key player, Markus, and I guess we will go into for the duels in the game, that is on Bayern, Musiala.
Exactly. And we have a matchup between two of arguably the biggest talents in the world, Dad, and two of the players that I think Germany will be heavily relying on or hoping that they can rely on going into the Euros at home this summer. But it is, like you said, it is Musiala at Bayern and it's Wirtz at Bayer Leverkusen, two tens, two very enjoyable players to watch. And genuinely, and I watch football, I watch English football, I watch German football, Spanish, whatever. It's two of the most enjoyable players to watch because the way they carry the ball and the kind of silky smoothness by which they do it is a treat to the eyes, and that is one of the key matchup. We obviously have Harry Kane leading the line, but Bayer Leverkusen are without the bunny face. They'll have Sheik or Iglesias to rely on, and then you obviously have Sané, who's had a brilliant season. But in terms of two youngsters there, two of the foremost talents in the world, you have Wirtz and Musiala, and we're both the big fan of them, Dad. But in terms of breaking them down, it's Florian Wirtz with 8 assists this season, the most in the Bundesliga. Now Musiala's scoring has, I don't know why this popped up here, but Musiala's scoring prowess has maybe going down a bit this season. That's because of injuries and what have you. But even still, when he glides with the ball and dribbles through there, he is such a danger to the opposition team, isn't he?
He is like the PlayStation player. I always say that because the PlayStation is developing and is getting better and better. It nearly looks like reality, but still you have that feeling when I see other players, because I when I lost against you when we were 5, I stopped playing PlayStation. But this is the way. It's like they nearly don't touch the ground. I must say that Musiala play a bit. I'm not saying that Florian Wirtz doesn't play a free role, but it seems from the outside, I don't know what the instruction will be from Tuchel to Musiala, from Alonso to Florian Wirtz, but you may say that the pattern of Florian Wirtz is more defined. Musiala a bit freer in his role because Bayern, do you play with 2 number 6? Do you play with 1 number 6? But still, 2 of the poster boys of German football, 2 friends, as you were saying, as this hand is coming into our
it's agreeing with you.
Yeah, they do agree with you, someone. And yeah, so I mean, for the neutrals, for the football fans, have a look at these 2 players. I mean, they are just worth watching the game, just doing that. You saw Florian Wirtz. I watched the game against Gladbach. It was 0-0, but every time when he got the ball, something was created. Something. The problem then, of course, the players around are not intelligent enough, football intelligent enough, not to get him. But that will be a main duel in that game. But having said that, Harry Kane with his goals, you will wonder maybe after a Gladbach game, where will Bayern get their goal? Bayer Leverkusen get a goal from? Patrick Schick need to come there, and so on and so on. You will have Müller. He got his 500th win. This is probably a game that he will somehow play a role. You never know which role, probably an assist or something. It will be a major player also in this game because he's been there before, and that's the problem that Leverkusen is watching in the dressing room of Bayern. There are so many players who have been in these key games before, and I think that could also be an advantage or that will be an advantage for Bayern Munich.
Just to conclude on the Wirtz Musiala kind of matchup, Bundesliga did a great breakdown, a great article on that, but they were differentiating between the passer and the dribbler in the sense that Wirtz has actually the most assists across all the top 5 leagues in Europe. Next on the list is Leroy Sané with 12. So across all competitions, Wirtz attempts the second most difficult passes in the league, but has a completion rate of 64%. Musiala attempts less passes, but he dribbles a lot, and he has a very successful dribbling rate at that, where I think the stats are useful in terms of highlighting the differences as such. Leverkusen come in there with, obviously they have their widely successful wingbacks. Look out for Grimaldo, look out for Frimpong. On either case, they'll often be serving each other. They have assists, they have goals to their name. A Xhaka there who has led the line brilliantly for Leverkusen. But I just have this feeling that we always kind of build this up and we question our Bayern, and that's what makes Bayern, is that when they're being doubted, they just tend to remind you, say, hold up now. Let me remind you why we are champions. And that cannot be underestimated and understated how important that is, because Bayern have been here before. This is the first time that, and you will know this from your career, Dad, I'm sure you gained experience enough to play those important games, and there will be a player and a club there with perhaps less experience, or there is less experience than Bayern, and that's kind of the inkling I have going into the game on Saturday.
Yeah, it's kind of Landis, Marcus. I think that we are down to predict the game, and this is not a title decider. This is a title battle. Bayer Leverkusen is 2 points ahead of Bayern, meaning if they win, they are 5 points ahead. That you don't have to be Albert Einstein to get that. But what you have to be Einstein or somebody who will know a lot more than we do. What this do with the players? And I think that if Bayern will win this, they will be 1 point ahead, of course. That is the fact. But that will so damage Leverkusen because they will think, here we go again. You can imagine after the game, they will be slight favorite. They're playing at home. They haven't lost. So I think that if Bayer Leverkusen win, this is not only a 5 point lead, but it's also a lead. It's a relief in the head. They can see that we can win the major games against the title specialist Bayern Munich. Bayern Munich will just keep on going. They will say that, yeah, now we're ahead, and we know if we win the rest of the games, we'll win the league and so on. So I think there's also a mind game here. If it's a draw, yeah, boring, and go on. My prediction, Marcus, I think that either will Leverkusen hammer them, and I mean hammer them. I think they will get they will just come out big time and surprise Bayern, winning by 3 goals. Or Bayern München will do as Bayern München always do, win a 1-0 or a tight game. They will win it just because they have that culture, and that culture doesn't need or should never be underestimated. So a big win for Leverkusen or a tight win for Bayern. This is not a 0-0. This is not a 1-1. Just see, put your money where your mouth is.
We do not endorse any following of this for bets or anything. This is our disclaimer.
Just between me and you. But between you and me.
Just between me and you, exactly. Dad, just to conclude this, I asked you for the top 3 Bayern, former Bayern and Leverkusen players. And there was so few players to choose from, but I'll be curious who your top 3 is.
Yeah, so this is players who played for both teams. The manager is Jupp Heynckes. I mean, he's been at Leverkusen. He has been at Bayern Munich. But it was hard, Marcus, because there are so many. You may say that the best players, they all go to Bayern if they are from Werder Bremen or Dortmund or Leverkusen. So I had a look through, and you had Lucio, the defender, but I never warmed to him for some reason. I mean, it must have been very hard and annoying to play against. So he could have been there. There's a lot of players. I put my glasses on now because Marcus, when you challenged me on the day, you have Vidal. Wow, what a Vidal when he came back to his club in South America on looking as a knight on a horse, by the way. You had Jorginho, the right back. These are players that I played with. Emre Can, of course, had a great career. But I'm going down to 3. Number 3, Zé Roberto. Zé Roberto, he started. What a fantastic Brazilian! He went first to Real Madrid, and then he went back to Brazil, and then he came over to Leverkusen. And Leverkusen, for those who didn't, they always had a great connection. As you see on this list, to Brazil. They were fantastic and recruiting the best players for Leverkusen from Brazil, and then Bayern took them, obviously. So he's the 3rd. He was 2 periods at Bayern. I think if I'm not 100% wrong, I think he won 4 doubles with Bayern. Fantastic. People loved him. The fans loved him. One of their favorites. Number 2, I have played against him. So we're going back. The 2 first I played against, that was Ballack, Michael Ballack. Ballack was at that 2001 team. He was scoring goals for fun in that period, in that season. I think he got 17 of 20 in 29 games as a midfielder. And Michael Ballack, the English audience will remember him at Chelsea as well. He was a bit unlucky with the German national team, got injuries before World Cup, lost his captaincy to, I guess it was Philipp Lahm. He lost his captaincy to. But Michael Ballack had a fantastic career, born in East Germany. I played against. Then he played for Kaiserslautern. A great player, a great character. He had a presence on the pitch that was unbelievable.
Fantastic player.
But
a proper German leader in the midfield there. He could score, like you said.
Yeah, it was a Spielführer. It was a captain.
Genau.
But the number one, it's nearly forgotten that he played for Leverkusen, but he was there and he played for Bayern, winning the treble. Toni Kroos. I mean, Toni Kroos will probably go into the books of German football as one of the greatest in terms of titles, winning the Champions League for Bayern, and the rest is history at Real Madrid. He is also a nice, cool guy that has developed into the best. There was he didn't have at some time. I take about the notes, Marcus, because I have the three now. So it's Roberto number 3, number 2 is Ballack, and Toni Kroos. Toni Kroos doesn't have the great lobby in Germany, because when he left Bayern, he kind of left them somehow of a bad note in quote. But I mean, what a decision he made to go to Real Madrid, one of the finest midfielders of all time. And he will be up there with him. The way he passed the ball, precise, and like I said, great lad with a great attitude. And we'll talk about more. I will do that, how important it could be to try to get him back at the German national team. We can speak about that later. So that was my three players, 2 of them from East Germany and 1 from Brazil.
Lovely list. I mean, that's a good midfield trio right there. And for our American listeners, because we have a bit of them, don't forget Landon Donovan is also on that list. He had a brief stint by Munich as well on loan. But great list, Dad. I think we've previewed it adequately enough. But all there's left to say is just watch the game. Watch 2 incredible teams. Watch a Leverkusen team that has flourished under Xabi Alonso, that has continued just to improve and set new standards week after week, adding new strengths and characteristics to what constitutes this Bayer Leverkusen team against the reputable, the never can be questioned winning culture of Bayern Munich. And despite not having the most convincing performances, their points tally, the way that they have caught on to Leverkusen this season has been impressive too. So don't count them out of the title race quite yet. That any parting words before we leave the audience and review this back on Monday?
It's a fantastic game coming up, Marcus, and it's the challenger against the champion. This is in a week when Apollo Creed from Rocky died, Marcus. I was so sad. Apollo Creed, the actor who played him, died. So I will say this is Rocky against Apollo Creed. And I got a feeling that Rocky could win this in the first try.
Rocky 1 or Rocky 2, you know? That's the question.
Yeah,
which matchup?
in Rocky 1, he lost.
Yeah, I
think that. But I think Rocky could win in the first round in this game.
I love the analogy. Shout out Apollo Creed as well. Dad, it was a pleasure as always. And then, come Monday, we'll review and see where this leads in the overall title race. But for now, auf Wiedersehen.
Auf Wiedersehen.